In this Map Suite MVC Edition sample app walkthrough, we're going to show you how you can implement clicking on a feature and then zooming into it, and then also displaying some attribute data about that feature. So with most of our samples, we're just using, got our basic map control here with a map of the world. And for example, if I click on Brazil, you'll notice that the map automatically zooms in to the extent that covers that entire country. And we've got a little table showing up here with all the attribute data about Brazil that we found in the shapefile. If I select another country here, like Bolivia, the same action will happen, and the map will even zoom in further since it's a smaller country area-wise, and update the data over here with the information for Bolivia. If you're looking to implement something like this in your application, you want to allow your users to click on features, display information, and automatically zoom. This is a really good sample to draw some sample code from. So let's dig into the code and I'll show you how we set all this up. Let's first start with the view source code. And the view source code is made up of two primary areas, the JavaScript, which we'll look at in a second, and then down here where we're setting up the map when the page is loaded. So we have our normal stuff here where we're adding the map to the page, setting the background color, current extent of where we want to be zoomed into, and the map unit. And then down here we're setting up our various overlays. This sample actually has three different overlays. It's got the one for the World Map Kit WMS web overlay, so that gives you all the base map basically. And then we've got another overlay that's tied to a shapefile feature that is contains the country boundaries of the entire world. And we're setting some styles on that, so it's pretty much just transparent, so you can see through them, and maybe a slight border. And we're applying that style for all zoom levels. If you're wondering why we're doing this, the reason is because the World Map Kit WMS web overlay is just tiles, it's images. There is no feature data, so when you click on something, you have to tie it back to the actual shapefile data, so you can get the geometry, you can get the attribute data, and all of that. So that's why we have to implement this shapefile feature layer, so we can actually get to the data for that country when the user clicks on it. So once we have that shapefile feature layer, we add it to its own layer overlay and add that to the map. And then finally we've got an in-memory feature overlay that handles the highlighting of the country once we select it. So right by default there's not going to be any features added to this highlight layer and this in-memory layer for this overlay, but when we click it we'll add that feature to it, so it'll highlight. And the styling for that is right here where we create a simple area style. So if you wondered where the green color is coming from in the highlighted country, that's where all that's defined here. And we're setting it up for all zoom levels as well. So if you only wanted to show it for certain zoom levels, you could play with this this value here and only show it at the lower or higher zoom levels accordingly. Once we add that overlay, the only two things left to do is to implement tell the map control that if the user clicks the map that we want to call this JavaScript function, zoom to feature, and then render that out. So the next place I wanted to take a look at is the zoom to feature, because that's where the JavaScript is here, and that's up here in this JavaScript block. And zoom to feature passes in an event parameter where you can actually get the coordinate that the user clicked on. So that's what this E is, and you can see we're getting the longitude and latitude value and putting that in a variable called parameter. The next thing we do is we actually do an AJAX callback back to the server side, and we're going to be calling our controller, and we're going to be passing in what we want to do, zoom to shape, passing in the parameters. So in this case it's the longitude and latitude, and then the callback function we want to happen once we get the return from the server. And in this case the callback function is right here, and we just get the parameters passed back from the server, the extent, which is where we want to zoom to, and we build a bounding box of that extent, and then we call the Maps JavaScript API to zoom to that extent. So that's all done client side, so it doesn't look like there's any postbacks, and it's very seamless and quick from the user experience. And finally, also when we get what we get back from the server is the data to fill in that table. and so we're getting that parameter out of here and populating the table accordingly. So some of that may not make sense until we go look at the controller source code. So let's go there next. And that's basically what this AJAX callback does, is it calls back to the server and to the controller, and we'll look at the zoom to shape code and see what's going on behind there, because that's where most of the magic is happening. So to see the view controller source, we'll go back to the sample and click this button. And as you can see, we've got a map action filter down here, and that tells us, whatever we pass in that AJAX callback, that hey, look for that and look for zoom to shape, since that's what we passed in. And with that, we get some parameters, the map, and then a geo collection of various arguments. The first thing we do here in the controller is we get the position, the longitude and latitude, and we create a point shape out of that. Then the next thing we do is we actually get a reference to the world layer, the shapefile feature layer that contained all the country boundaries. Once we have that reference, we also get a reference to the highlight layer. So once we do our operations, we'll have some place to put it to add the new highlighted feature layer. Here we're clearing the highlighted feature layer in case any existed, so that if you click on multiple countries, you're only going to show the last one that they clicked on. And this is the piece of code that's probably most important for this sample, because this is where we're doing a query on the shapefile that contains the country boundaries. We're passing in the position and we're saying return all the columns. So this is actually what's looking in the shapefile and finding out what country the user clicked on. And this method right here will return a collection of features. Since you can only click in one country at a time, it's only going to return one country. Then we add that, once we have those features, we're going to come down here and do some other processing. This section right here is creating the HTML table that would display the attribute data. We're also getting the current extent of that feature of that country, so we can pass that back so the map can zoom in accordingly. And here we're looking to say, hey, make sure we found a country that the user clicked on. If they clicked on the ocean, we don't want to highlight, or we don't want to do anything. If they did click on a country, we want to go ahead and add that feature that they clicked on to the highlight layer by using the internal features.add. We want to set the current extent of the map by using this extent helper and the get bounding box and passing in that information. And then we're also going to pass in pass the extent back to the callback function, so we could do the extent client side as well, and that will keep the server and the client side in sync. Finally, here we're just doing a little loop to build up our data table HTML, and then we're building our extent string, and then we're passing all of this back in a pipe delimited parameter collection. So then that then gets returned back to the client, and if you look back where we were before, that would get passed into this callback result where we parse out the parameters, the extent, the bounding box, and then actually do the zoom, and then populate the table of attributes dynamically through JavaScript here. So as you can see, this gives a really good user feel. There's no postbacks. It's very, very quick performance-wise. Your user can click on various countries. The map automatically zooms, and the HTML table automatically updates. I hope this video walkthrough was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us, or you can also post them directly to our discussion forums at thinkgeo.com/forums. Thanks again for watching.